Well, good morning. This is Vic Ermel with Dave Cleveland interviewing Bruce Gilbert. Bruce is a longtime member here, and today is September 27th, 2010, and we are going to hear his life story and stories of probably laughter and some serious ones and a lot of funny history of his life. And so Dave, we'll just start. First of all, welcome to the interview.
Looking forward to it.
Second, first, let's start with where you were born. Were you an Ohioan, Buckeye, or Indiana, or Pennsylvania?
I was born in Lakewood Hospital here in Lakewood, Ohio in 1938, and the family moved to Memphis, Tennessee in 1940 as the U.S. started building up their war effort. And my father was a chemist, and he worked for DuPont, which had a subsidiary known as Hercules Powder. And so the family moved down there for 5 years during the build up to World War II and then through World War II. And then we moved back to Cleveland, and family bought a house, a two-bedroom house, one bath in Fairview Park. And that was really where I grew up. I went to high school at Fairview High, went to grade school at Garnett, a building that only lasted a few years after I graduated from grade school. But basically I consider myself an Ohio resident. I ended up marrying my high school sweetheart, Linda, who has probably had 2 times more rounds of golf at Lakewood than I ever had. But she's always loved the golf game. And we quickly, she finished, I was not through college when we got married. She was going to Ohio State, which I barely have ever forgiven her for. I went to Michigan State. A year later, I graduated from Michigan State and then went on to graduate school at Harvard and graduated there in '93. And we went to work at Corning Glass Works, moved all our earthly belongings in a Volkswagen Beetle with 2 cats. And we started life, and it really was tough for Linda. She worked the whole time I was in school, and she became pregnant very quickly. We had our first child in '64, second in a daughter, and then her second in '66, also a daughter, and then our son in '70. So it was Jennifer, Sandra, and Mark. I'm happy to say they're all eminently successful. The only difficulty is they have all moved, and none live in the area, and all 3 are raising 2 grandchildren of ours. Each has 2, and it has forced us to consider where we're going to get the family together, and we've decided a long time ago that Florida was probably the best answer for that. So we bought a condo in Florida in '93. We really rented it out. We just bought it in '93 because Andrew, the hurricane, had gone through, and the community we were interested in had just tremendous opportunities of oceanfront condos that could be gotten at a very inexpensive price. So we really made an investment. And Linda got a little tired of winters in Cleveland in '96 and decided we weren't going to rent the condo anymore. And so she would end up spending the winter in Florida, and I would go back and forth a little bit. Eventually, I went down there in 2000, retired from my company in 2003.
What was the name of the company? And tell us about the company, maybe.
The firm, I joined in 1968, 5 years out of graduate school. It was the Great Lakes Construction Company, and we're a heavy civil contractor. Operate primarily in Ohio and its surrounding states. I I came up on the power plant side of that business as opposed to the highway portion, which is now the major portion of that business. So my first field assignment work was in 1970. Two projects we had on Enrico Fermi 2, which is a nuclear plant outside of Monroe, Michigan. Then I went over to Donald C. Cook, which is over near Bridgman, Michigan. Kind of came back in the office doing sales and engineering work, and then really ended up, like I guess I'd call it being head of administration, until we got the Perry nuclear power plant projects. And then I moved out to the Perry plant to manage the effort that we had out there, which was the largest work that Great Lakes had ever acquired up to that time. 1977, I was moved up to senior vice president with the idea we'd try it out for a couple of years. If it didn't work, I don't know what, I'm not too sure what the result was there. But I didn't have much doubt that I think it would work.
Good.
And in 1979, I was made chief operating officer and president of the company. We had an outside board at Great Lakes Construction, even though we're a privately owned firm. And there was some difficulty with the CEO, who was now living full-time in Florida by 1979. And we were having a little trouble with the financial requirement of supporting him and his lifestyle and trying to run a business where the end of the power plant life of Great Lakes was just about over. Our last power plant job completed in 1983, so you get an idea how long it's been. We still do work in the power industry, I don't mean to say that, but we don't build brand new plants. We always have done work in the steel industry, but we don't build any more new plants in steel industry. Petroleum was another of our private industries, and the same thing. We have lost anything but 15% of our business now is in the private side. The rest is public work. Changes the whole complexion of what the fabric of a company can be, and you have to eliminate value added from your equation of running a business. Public work doesn't want to talk about value added. They want to talk about low price and forget it. So that the whole concept of what we were doing, we needed to change, and the draw of the money was creating a problem. So the end result was, through a leverage buyout, I bought out the prior CEO in 1985 and took over the company. We had a good team of guys. Nobody left. Everybody took a pay cut. We had a really tough time for the first couple of years. I mean, we had leveraged up with a lot of debt. The market was soft. So we had a lot of things that made it through. By 1998, we were just going gangbusters. And it had been a great ramp up. 1998, we hired Dave Lauterbach to do an executive search. That was one of the inputs of the outside board of directors. And Dave interviewed roughly 200 employees, or not employees, excuse me, candidates, a few employees. And we ended up picking a 34-year-old guy who started with Great Lakes as a co-op student and had been there. And he was elected chief operating officer. And he has done an absolutely fantastic job. The only problem I have, he won't let me get off my position, which is still chairman of the board, and he's still, I wanted to retire at 70, and he said, nope, I just can't do it. So I still have to come back to Cleveland, and as my dear Linda tells me all the time, you don't have to come back, you love it. So there you are. So that's kind of the Gilberts. We have 6 grandchildren, ages from 2 to 14. They're all doing very well. And we took the 6 grandchildren and obviously the 3 children and their spouses, and Linda and I all went out at the end of June to a dude ranch in Montana and spent a week together. Each family had their own cottage, and it was just a fantastic time. Nobody had ever thought of doing that, and actually Lois Palmer came up with the idea of a dude ranch. And we had celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary out at the dude ranch. Had a great time.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you. It's all due to my wife. How she, one of the problems with being in the heavy construction business is there aren't many home games. And so you're always, if you're on a project, you're going somewhere. And if you're not on a project, to get anything accomplished, you're going to have to go to those projects. So we put in a lot of time in cars, and we also live out of town a lot. That's the nature of the beast. The new environment, the younger people don't accept that the way that us old guys did. And the company and its business has adjusted well to that. We are stretching out again more because work right now is not as good as we'd like it to be. But we are doing, our main focus on business now at Great Lakes is large bridge projects. You may be aware we were one of the 2 bid teams on the new Interbelt Bridge, a project that actually is under dispute right now as to who got the job, but that's another story. So let's talk about a little bit about how Great Lakes Construction and my wife especially and I got involved in Lakewood Country Club. And it all involves around the Lauterbachs. I was not playing much golf, and the reason being, in our business, if you don't get it done when the sun shines, you aren't going to get it done. So summertime was not a time that I played golf. We skied a lot. We skied a lot because that was the time that I could take time off. The whole family skied, and all 3 of the kids became very good skiers, and I think we'd have to say Linda and I turned out to be good skiers. We'd go every year between Christmas and New Year's up to Ellicottville with a whole group from this area, people like the Dewars, Castles, who were short-term members here as social members. But we'd go up there with our families, and we'd be able to have parties where we could rent a hall and have an awful lot of people the children's age, and so it really worked out great. And then, of course, Linda and I would go ski out west. We did a lot of skiing out west. But when we picked up skiing when we lived in Corning, New York, working for Corning Glassworks, who was my first employer for 5 years. And it was such an easy thing to do and fun to do. We'd had a little taste of it when we lived up in Boston, one or 2 times, but anyway, because of the Lauterbachs, and and the pressure on Linda a little bit, we ought to come on, join this thing. When I became Chief Operating Officer, we joined Lakewood in '77. And I rarely got involved in Saturday golf because Saturday was definitely a work day, certainly half day, more likely I'd be home by 2 o'clock or something like that on Saturday. But Linda was playing golf. The kids were old enough that she could play golf. She was always concerned about me not playing golf. And so when I took over the company as Chief Operating Officer, the kids had all left and gone to college, and we built a house across the street here in Pebble Beach Oval. And the reason we built it there, hard to say, was to con me into playing more golf.
Took away all your excuses, right?
Well, you have to realize Linda is a very intelligent and well organized and planned young gal, and she can figure out ways to force my hand. So we did it, and we, you know, it was a uniquely designed house. We had the opportunity to put a lot of input into it, and it really worked out well. It didn't solve my golf problem at all, but I did start using the facility more during the week with some entertainment or business involvement idea. My first involvement, though, in Lakewood is really getting involved was the Greens Committee. And I can't tell you the year that I joined the Greens Committee with Mike Manco Sr. And Mike was, to me, a great Greens Committee guy. He wanted, the reason we had